What if I told you the most decorated driver in Formula One history is being torn apart by people inside his own garage? Just days after a brutal retirement in Brazil, insiders are questioning whether Lewis Hamilton still has it, whether Ferrari made the wrong choice, and if Vegas could be his breaking point. But Hamilton's not backing down. He's bringing a brand new spec to Las Vegas, and he's got one goal: prove every critic wrong under the lights with the world watching. So if you still believe in champions rising when the world turns its back, hit subscribe. Because this is the part of the story no one's showing you. The last time Lewis Hamilton left an F1 paddock, it was with his visor down and his engine off. Brazil 2025 was supposed to be the bounce back, the circuit where Ferrari's new updates would finally connect with Hamilton's driving style. But instead, it ended in silence. A DNF. A car that gave up on him before he ever had a chance to fight. For the second time in 3 races, Hamilton walked away not from a defeat, but from mechanical failure. A brutal reminder that in Formula One, you can't race if the car won't run. That moment opened the floodgates. Behind the scenes, doubts began to surface. Whispers from inside Maranello questioning whether the Hamilton-Ferrari project had already peaked. If the SF25 was simply too fragile. If the chemistry between car and driver had never truly materialized. Some went further, suggesting Lewis was no longer the technical North Star he once was. That his instincts, once legendary, were now outdated in a new data-driven grid. Harsh words, especially for a 7-time world champion. But that's what happens when you're not just racing the stopwatch, you're racing perception. But let's be clear. Lewis Hamilton has heard it all before. He was written off in 2011. Criticized when he left McLaren. Mocked for joining a Mercedes team that hadn't won a title in years. And every time, he came back faster, sharper, more ruthless. What happened in Brazil wasn't a defeat, it was a challenge. And Hamilton doesn't walk away from challenges. He rewrites them. Las Vegas isn't just another Grand Prix. It's a high-speed, low-grip, street fight under lights, and Hamilton has always thrived when the margins are narrow and the pressure burns hottest. This weekend, he arrives with more than just intent. Ferrari is bringing a reworked floor, revised rear wing, and a new energy deployment mapping tailored specifically to Hamilton's feedback. Unlike earlier this year, where setups felt like compromises, Vegas is different. The engineers are now building the car around Hamilton's exact inputs. The turn-in, the traction, the balance under braking. The Ferrari SF25 may still trail McLaren and Red Bull on raw pace, but in Hamilton's hands with upgrades sculpted to his demands, it becomes a different weapon entirely. And there's something else Lewis Hamilton doesn't forget. In 2024, Ferrari underperformed in Las Vegas. Poor tire warm-up, weak traction zones, and a setup that left them exposed. But Hamilton has reviewed every telemetry file, every pit entry time, every DRS delta from that weekend. He's not just preparing to drive, he's preparing to correct a legacy. He knows that the headlines are ready to write him off again. That this may be his last chance this season to stand on a podium before Abu Dhabi. And that kind of pressure doesn't crush Hamilton. It activates him. So while the critics talk, while the noise builds, Hamilton has gone quiet deliberately. Because in his world, silence isn't retreat. It's focus. And in Las Vegas, under the lights, with every eye waiting to see if the legend has one more fight left, Lewis Hamilton will do what he always does when pushed into a corner. He won't talk. He won't tweet. He'll drive. And if the SF25 holds together, he'll remind everyone why you never, ever count out a champion. In 2024, Ferrari came to Las Vegas with high hopes and left exposed. The SF24 lacked rear grip, struggled on cold compounds, and suffered from chronic instability under traction zones, especially through Sector 2. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz both fought the car more than a competition, and the setup window was narrow. Ferrari couldn't unlock tire performance fast enough during the short-run qualifying stints, and their race pace dropped dramatically once surface temperatures fell below ideal thresholds. It wasn't just a weak weekend, it was a structural failure in their car philosophy. Fast forward 12 months, and the SF25 is not just a new car, it's a different concept, sculpted in part by the arrival of Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari didn't just hire a driver. They brought in one of the sharpest development minds in the sport. From pre-season in Fiorano to mid-season correlation work in Barcelona, Hamilton's fingerprints are now embedded in the way this Ferrari behaves on the limit. He asked for a stronger front end. He demanded predictable rotation. He pushed the engineers to make traction smoother, not snappier, especially on low-grip circuits. And Ferrari listened. One of the most noticeable changes is the rear suspension philosophy. Hamilton brought with him Mercedes-style feedback. He wanted a car that could absorb lateral load without killing traction. The SF25 now uses a more compliant rear end under throttle, giving Lewis the stability he needs to carry speed out of slow corners without losing tire surface temperature. That's critical in Las Vegas, where long straights follow aggressive slow corners. In 2024, Ferrari had to tiptoe through these sections. This year, Hamilton plans to launch. Another major improvement is energy deployment. In 2024, Ferrari's ERS mapping was inconsistent, too aggressive early in the lap and lacking support at the end of straights. Hamilton immediately flagged this during early sim work. Now the deployment strategy is tailored to his throttle application and lift and coast preferences. That means more efficient harvesting, better reg and underbraking, and more usable power in DRS zones, exactly where Vegas rewards clean exits and controlled aggression. The result? A car that now behaves like an extension of Hamilton's instincts, not a compromise. Even the floor and aero balance have shifted. Last year's Vegas spec suffered from poor ride quality over bumps and curbs. Hamilton asked for a more forgiving setup that wouldn't destabilize the platform during trail braking. Ferrari responded with a revised floor edge and softened front-to-rear aero ratio. Combined with a new rear wing that generates less drag under yaw, the SF25 is no longer bleeding time in unpredictable crosswind conditions, a critical detail in the desert night environment of Vegas. Every change is subtle, but every change points to Hamilton at the center of Ferrari's evolution. That's why this weekend matters. It's not about making up for Brazil. It's about validating a year's worth of changes, all built around Hamilton's vision of how a Ferrari should behave. In 2024, he watched Vegas from the outside. In 2025, he's the architect of their return. And if the car holds together, and if the grip comes on time, there's a real chance that Hamilton doesn't just silence the critics. He reminds them that even at 40, his development IQ is still ahead of the grid. When Ferrari arrived in Las Vegas this year, they brought more than just a floor upgrade. They brought an internal shift in technical direction. Since mid-season, more and more of Ferrari's development choices have started to lean toward the feedback coming from Hamilton's side of the garage. And while both drivers are given equal machinery, the philosophy behind those changes is now closer to what Hamilton demands than what traditionally suits Leclerc. In a season where adaptation is everything, that shift may prove decisive, especially on a circuit as specific and unforgiving as Vegas. The most important change is how the SF25 now handles its operating window. Early in 2025, Ferrari still struggled to generate immediate tire temperature, particularly on street tracks. That hurt Leclerc in qualifying, where his aggressive entry style relies on peak grip from lap 1. But Hamilton's feedback encouraged a different approach: slow build-up, progressive warm-up, and better tire retention over long runs. That matches Vegas perfectly. The low-grip surface punishes early push laps and rewards those who manage traction and braking rhythm. In that context, Hamilton's input is not just valuable, it's strategic. Then there's the balance under braking. Leclerc likes a car that rotates sharply on corner entry, even if it's twitchy mid-corner. Hamilton prefers stability, a front end that responds but doesn't spike, especially during heavy braking phases. In Las Vegas, with multiple heavy stop-start sections and a need for precision in turn-in zones, that demand for stability becomes a performance differentiator. Ferrari's new brake migration settings and revised pedal mapping are designed to maintain aero balance under deceleration, something Hamilton championed after Baku and Monza. And now it's becoming standard. The rear wing spec is also a small but crucial clue. For Vegas, Ferrari has introduced a low-drag rear wing that sacrifices some cornering downforce for top-end speed. Leclerc has historically preferred higher downforce setups to maximize apex grip, especially in Sector 2 circuits. But Hamilton pushed for this specific profile, one that keeps him competitive in DRS battles without overloading the tires in high-speed sweeps. In a race where overtaking may come down to straight-line delta and battery deployment, the setup direction once again tilts in Hamilton's favor. Even within the garage, subtle signs point to a growing trust in Hamilton's technical leadership. Engineers who previously built setups around Leclerc's feedback are now cross-checking with Hamilton's simulator data before finalizing race specs. Strategy simulations for Las Vegas were reportedly run with more weight given to Hamilton's long-run delta, not just because of experience, but because his Vegas-specific simulations produced higher correlation with track data from FP1. That's not favoritism. That's trust earned through precision, and that makes a difference in final setup choices. Put simply, Las Vegas is the clearest example yet of how Ferrari is evolving around Hamilton's presence. Not to push Leclerc aside, but to finally capitalize on having one of the most complete drivers in the history of Formula One inside their system. When the lights go out on Saturday night, the car Hamilton drives will reflect months of quiet influence in the brake balance, in the aero map, in the tire strategy. And if everything clicks, we may finally see what this Ferrari can do when built for Hamilton, not around him.